The night my husband told me my parents were my problem, I had already paid his mother's mortgage, covered his brother's car payment, and transferred enough money to keep his sister's business from closing. He had no idea. For 6 years, nearly $5,000 left my account every month to support people who barely remembered my birthday. His family treated that money like it appeared naturally, as if bills simply disappeared whenever they became inconvenient. 10 days after I stopped paying, his mother received a foreclosure warning. By the end of the month, my husband finally discovered who had been holding his entire family together. Hi, my name is Claire Bennett. I was 38 years old when I realized generosity could slowly become a prison. I lived outside Columbus, Ohio, with my husband, Ryan, in a 4-bedroom house that looked far more peaceful than our marriage actually was. From the street, we appeared successful, stable, and comfortably ordinary. Ryan worked in medical equipment sales and earned a strong salary. I managed financial operations for a regional construction company, which meant I understood budgets, debt, interest, and risk better than most people. Unfortunately, understanding money did not stop me from making emotional decisions with it. Ryan's family had struggled financially for as long as I had known them. His mother, Denise, had refinanced her home twice after his father died. His younger brother, Caleb, moved between jobs while maintaining a lifestyle his income never supported. His sister, Amanda, opened a boutique using credit cards and optimism instead of a business plan. Every crisis arrived with the same urgency. A missed mortgage payment became a threat of homelessness. A broken transmission became a threat to someone's livelihood. An overdue vendor invoice became proof that the entire family was under attack. At first, I helped because I loved Ryan. Then I helped because I felt guilty saying no. Eventually, I helped because everyone had quietly started depending on me. The arrangement was never formal. No one sat me down and demanded $5,000 each month. It happened in pieces that were easier to justify. $800 for Denise's mortgage shortage, $600 for Caleb's truck, $1,200 for Amanda's store lease, another few hundred for utilities, insurance, medical bills, and emergencies that never seemed to end. Some months were lower. Others were much worse. Over time, the average settled near $5,000, all paid from my personal checking account. Ryan knew I helped occasionally, but he never asked for exact numbers. Whenever his family faced another crisis, he forwarded the problem to me and trusted that I would handle it. That should have been my first warning. Instead, I saw his trust as proof that I mattered. My own parents lived 3 hours away in western Pennsylvania. They were careful people who had worked hard, avoided debt, and never asked me for money. My father repaired industrial machinery for almost 30 years. My mother worked part-time at a public library until arthritis made standing painful. They had never lived extravagantly, but they had always managed. Then my father suffered a stroke. He survived, but his left side remained weak. Their insurance covered rehabilitation, although not the home modifications he needed before discharge. A wheelchair ramp, bathroom rails, widened doorways, and a safer shower would cost almost $18,000. For the first time in my adult life, my parents needed serious help. I expected Ryan to understand immediately. After all, I had spent years helping his family survive one emergency after another. Instead, he treated my parents' situation like an inconvenience that threatened our lifestyle. That evening, I explained the costs while he reviewed something on his phone. I showed him the contractor estimates, the hospital recommendations, and the amount insurance refused to cover. Ryan barely looked at the papers. Then he gave me the answer that changed our marriage. My parents were my responsibility. Their problems belonged to me, not to him. The words did not sound cruel because he raised his voice. They sounded cruel because he remained completely calm. For several seconds, I stared at the man whose family had consumed almost $300,000 of my income. Something inside me became very quiet. I gathered the estimates, closed my laptop, and reviewed every automatic transfer connected to his family. Before midnight, I canceled all of them. Denise's mortgage assistance, Caleb's truck payment, Amanda's lease support, Every utility, insurance premium, and emergency subscription disguised as kindness. I followed Ryan's rule exactly. My parents were my problem. His family was his. 10 days later, the first panic began. The first sign of trouble appeared on a Tuesday morning while I was sitting in a rehabilitation office beside my mother. My father was learning how to stand with a support bar. His face tightened from effort, although he kept nodding whenever the therapist encouraged him. Watching him struggle to move one foot forward made every payment I had sent Ryan's family feel different. For years, I had treated their discomfort like an emergency. Now my own father could barely cross a room. My phone vibrated several times inside my purse. I ignored it until the session ended, then found 11 missed calls from Ryan's mother. There were also messages from Caleb and Amanda, each marked urgent. I already knew what had happened. The mortgage transfer had failed. Denise had grown used to receiving money before the bank processed her payment. She never checked whether the balance came from her pension, her savings, or someone else's paycheck. She only knew the payment always cleared. That morning, it had not. I placed my phone on silent and helped my mother gather my father's medical papers. For once, I refused to let their crisis interrupt mine. By lunchtime, Ryan called me from work. His voice message sounded irritated rather than worried. His mother had received a bank notice, and he believed there had been an error with the transfer. The word error stayed with me. Nothing about the arrangement had ever been officially discussed, yet everyone considered my money automatic. My decision to stop paying was treated like a technical failure instead of a boundary. I did not return the call. That evening, Ryan was waiting in the kitchen when I arrived home. His phone, laptop, and several printed statements covered the island. He looked less angry than confused. Apparently, his family had contacted him throughout the day. Denise needed nearly $2,000 by Friday. Caleb's truck lender had added a late fee. Amanda's landlord had warned her that another missed payment could violate the lease. Ryan expected me to explain why everything had failed at once. I reminded him of the rule he had created. My parents belonged to me. His family belonged to him. The color left his face slowly. For the first time, he understood that I had not simply stopped one payment. I had removed the entire structure holding his family above water. He began reviewing the statements, but his confusion deepened. The numbers did not match what he had believed. Ryan thought I had been helping his mother with a few $100s occasionally. He believed Caleb handled most of his own expenses. He assumed Amanda's boutique was finally profitable. None of that was true. I opened my banking history and showed him 6 years of transfers. The total was more than $280,000. Ryan stared at the screen as if the number belonged to strangers. Part of me expected shame. Another part hoped he might finally understand what his indifference had cost me. Instead, he focused on the immediate damage. His family needed money now. My father's home modifications suddenly became secondary again. That moment erased the last doubt I had about canceling everything. Over the next 4 days, the pressure increased. Denise contacted mutual relatives and claimed I had abandoned her during a financial emergency. Caleb sent long messages about losing transportation and possibly losing his job. Amanda posted vague comments online about people who offered help only to control others. None of them mentioned the years I had paid without conditions. None of them asked about my father. Ryan transferred money from our joint account to cover Denise's shortage. 2 days later, he paid Caleb's truck bill with a credit card. By the weekend, he had spent almost $6,000. That should have solved the immediate problem. Instead, more bills appeared. Denise had unpaid property taxes. Caleb owed money on 2 personal loans. Amanda was 3 months behind with one supplier and had hidden another overdue balance from her landlord. The family was not surviving because I helped occasionally. They had built their entire lives around my income. On the 10th day, Ryan received an email that finally changed his expression. It came from a lender I had never heard of. The message thanked him for confirming a payment arrangement on a loan connected to his mother's house. Ryan had never confirmed anything. He read the email twice, then opened the attached document. His name appeared beside Denise's. The loan balance was $74,000. And the signature at the bottom looked almost exactly like his. The signature looked convincing enough to pass a quick review. Ryan's full name appeared beneath a guarantee clause, followed by an address we had not used in 4 years. The document listed his phone number, his social security information, and the name of his employer. Someone had not guessed. Someone had prepared. Ryan spent the next hour calling the lender, the servicing company, and his mother. Each conversation left him more unsettled. The loan had been opened 18 months earlier against Denise's house, and the lender considered Ryan a co-borrower. Monthly payments had been withdrawn from Denise's account. My transfers had covered the shortage. Without realizing it, I had helped pay a loan carrying my husband's identity. The lender refused to discuss fraud until Ryan completed formal paperwork. They sent him copies of the application, identification records, and the original funding statement. $74,000 had been approved. After fees, Denise received just over $68,000. Ryan believed the money had gone toward home repairs. I knew that could not be true. Her roof still leaked near the guest bedroom. The furnace had failed twice that winter. The kitchen cabinets were the same faded oak she had complained about since our wedding. There was no visible sign of $68,000. By midnight, Ryan stopped defending her. That was when he noticed the email address on the application. It belonged to Amanda. The next morning, Denise arrived at our house without warning. Caleb came with her, followed 20 minutes later by Amanda. They gathered in our living room as though I had called a family meeting, even though nobody had asked whether I wanted them there. Their anxiety filled the house before anyone explained anything. Denise looked exhausted. Caleb kept checking his phone. Amanda carried a leather folder against her chest and avoided looking at Ryan. I sat near the window and listened. Nobody mentioned my father. Nobody asked about his recovery. The entire family focused on containing the loan problem before it reached the police, Ryan's employer, or the credit bureaus. Their fear told me this was bigger than one forged signature. Ryan placed the loan application on the coffee table and demanded an explanation. Denise began crying before she touched the papers. Her reaction seemed immediate, but not surprised. Amanda tried to redirect the blame toward a loan broker. Caleb insisted the family had been desperate after several expensive emergencies. Their stories overlapped without matching. One version claimed the money repaired Denise's foundation. Another suggested part of it covered medical debt. Amanda referred to business losses that Denise had supposedly agreed to support. Ryan kept returning to the same question. Where had the money gone? Nobody gave him a complete answer. While they argued, I opened the documents on my laptop and reviewed them the way I would examine a suspicious account at work. The loan had funded on a Friday. 3 days later, $25,000 moved from Denise's account to Amanda's business. Another $18,000 went to an account ending in numbers I recognized. Caleb's checking account. The remaining money disappeared through cash withdrawals, credit card payments, and several transfers labeled reimbursement. This had not been one desperate mistake. It had been a distribution. Each person in that room had received something. The documents also showed an automatic payment amount of nearly $1,200 per month. Denise's pension could not absorb it, especially after taxes, insurance, and utilities. My monthly support had hidden the damage perfectly. As long as I kept sending money, the loans stayed current. Ryan never received collection notices. Denise never had to explain the forged signature. Amanda's business remained open, and Caleb kept his truck. My kindness had not merely supported them. It had protected their lie. That realization made me physically cold. For 6 years, I had believed they saw me as family. I understood now that they had studied my habits instead. They knew I paid quickly. They knew I disliked conflict. They knew Ryan avoided financial details. Most importantly, they knew I would feel cruel if anyone claimed they might lose a home, a job, or a business. My generosity had become part of their planning. Amanda finally opened the leather folder. Inside were spreadsheets, loan statements, and copies of transfers from my personal account. Some pages included handwritten notes predicting how much I would send each month. My name appeared beside phrases like reliable source and emergency backup. One line had been underlined twice. Claire will cover the gap. That was the moment everything became insane. They had not hoped I would help. They had budgeted around me. Ryan picked up the page and stared at it for several seconds. His face changed in a way I had never seen before. The anger disappeared, replaced by humiliation. He was finally seeing what I had seen for years. His family did not respect our marriage. They had used it as access. Denise admitted that she knew about the forged signature, although she claimed Amanda completed the paperwork. Caleb confessed that part of his transfer paid gambling debts he had hidden from everyone. Amanda remained quiet until Ryan threatened to report the fraud. Then she looked toward me. She said the loan had only become dangerous because I stopped the payments. For 1 second, nobody moved. The accusation was so twisted that it clarified everything. They did not believe the fraud caused the crisis. They believed my boundary did. I closed the laptop and gathered the copied documents. Ryan asked where I was going, but I no longer trusted private family conversations to solve anything. The following morning, I planned to meet my company's attorney. Before I reached the front door, Denise revealed one more secret. The forged loan was not the only debt carrying Ryan's name. I stopped with my hand resting on the front door. Behind me, the room had gone completely still. Denise had finally said something that frightened even Amanda and Caleb. The forged home loan was only one account. Over the next 20 minutes, the truth came apart in layers. Ryan's name appeared on 2 personal loans, 3 credit cards, and a business line of credit connected to Amanda's boutique. The combined balance was more than $160,000. None of those accounts belonged to him. At least, not legally. His social security number had been used repeatedly. Old addresses, previous employers, and private details from tax records appeared across the applications. Someone had collected his information for years. Denise admitted that she kept copies of Ryan's documents after his father died. She had his birth certificate, old tax forms, college loan records, and insurance paperwork stored inside a locked cabinet. Amanda knew where the key was. Caleb knew what Amanda was doing. Nobody had stopped her. They had convinced themselves the debt would remain manageable as long as the monthly payments continued. My transfers had covered the gaps, Ryan's credit remained strong, and every new emergency justified another temporary solution. Temporary had lasted years. I sat back down because my legs no longer felt steady. The situation had already crossed beyond family manipulation. This was identity theft, financial fraud, and deliberate concealment. Then Denise looked toward me with an expression I could not understand. Her face held guilt, but also fear. That was when I realized there was still more. One of the credit cards was not under Ryan's name. It was under mine. Amanda had applied using information from a joint tax return Ryan once sent Denise while helping with an insurance form. My income, address, employer, and social security number had been copied from that file. The card had a $28,000 limit. Almost all of it was gone. For several seconds, I could not hear anything except the blood rushing in my ears. My body reacted before my mind caught up. My hands began trembling, and every breath felt too shallow. They had not only taken my money, they had stolen my identity. The card funded inventory, advertising, furniture for the boutique, and a luxury buying trip Amanda described as necessary for the business. Several charges came from restaurants, hotels, and a jewelry store. Nothing about it looked temporary. I opened my credit report from my phone. The account was there. So were 2 hard inquiries I had never authorized. A missed payment had been reported 11 days earlier, almost exactly when I canceled the transfers. My credit score had already fallen. That was the moment the entire room changed for me. I stopped seeing Denise as a frightened widow. I stopped seeing Caleb as an irresponsible younger brother. I stopped seeing Amanda as a struggling business owner. They were adults who had watched me carry them while quietly building debt in my name. Ryan looked devastated, but even his shock could not protect him from what came next. He had known Amanda possessed copies of our tax documents. Months earlier, she had claimed she needed proof of household income for a supplier agreement. Ryan sent the files without asking me. He had not known she planned to open credit. Still, his carelessness gave her access. That realization hurt differently. His family had committed the fraud, but Ryan had repeatedly opened the door. He ignored details, dismissed warnings, and allowed me to solve every crisis because it made his life easier. Now the consequences belonged to both of us. I left the house with the documents and drove to a hotel near my parents' hospital. From the parking lot, I froze my credit, disputed the account, contacted the lender, and sent copies of everything to an attorney from my company's legal network. By sunrise, I had filed an identity theft report. Ryan called more than 30 times. I did not answer. For years, I had protected his family from consequences. That protection ended before breakfast. Later that morning, my attorney discovered something even worse. The applications contained electronic records showing the same device had submitted several loans. The device was registered to our home internet, and one of the applications had been approved while Ryan was sitting beside me in our kitchen. The device record changed everything because it placed the fraud inside my own home. Until that moment, I could still imagine Ryan as careless, passive, and dangerously loyal to his family. Those traits were painful enough, but they were different from deliberate involvement. Now I needed proof. My attorney arranged a meeting that afternoon and asked me to bring every shared device, account statement, tax document, and email connected to our household. I returned home while Ryan was at work and packed the laptop, an old tablet, and the external drive from his office. Nothing about the house felt familiar anymore. The kitchen where we celebrated promotions now looked like a crime scene. The desk where Ryan paid occasional bills felt like a hiding place. Even our wedding photo seemed to belong to people who had never understood each other. At the attorney's office, a digital investigator reviewed the application records. The device had submitted 3 accounts. One belonged to Amanda's business. One carried Ryan's name. The last one carried mine. All 3 used our home internet, but only one was completed through Ryan's personal laptop. The others came from the old tablet, which had disappeared from our house nearly 2 years earlier. I remembered lending it to Denise after her computer stopped working. That explained part of the mystery. It did not explain Ryan's laptop. The application tied to his device was submitted on a Sunday evening. I checked the date against my calendar and remembered exactly where we had been. Ryan and I had returned from dinner with his family around 8. I showered, prepared for a Monday meeting, and went to bed early. He stayed downstairs. The loan was submitted 37 minutes after I left the kitchen. My attorney warned me not to assume intent before reviewing the full record. A website could have been opened by someone else, information might have been saved automatically, and remote access remained possible. Still, the timing made my stomach tighten. Ryan met me outside the office before sunset. He looked exhausted, as though 10 days of consequences had aged him several years. For the first time since this began, he did not arrive with excuses for his family. He brought his phone and surrendered every password voluntarily. The investigator found weeks of messages between Ryan and Amanda. Most concerned payments, supplier problems, and Denise's mortgage. Ryan repeatedly told Amanda that I would probably help, although he never mentioned specific amounts. Then we found the message that destroyed his remaining defense. Amanda had sent him a loan application 18 months earlier. She explained that Denise could not qualify a loan and needed Ryan listed as financial support. Ryan had opened the document. He had entered his employment details. He had uploaded a photograph of his driver's license. According to him, he believed he was helping Denise refinance at a lower rate. He claimed he stopped before signing because the terms looked risky. The electronic record showed otherwise. His approval had been submitted. Whether he understood every consequence no longer mattered to me. He had hidden the application because he knew I would object. That secrecy allowed Amanda to complete the rest. My husband had not invented the scheme, but he had helped create its foundation. He chose temporary peace with his family over honesty with me. Then he watched me transfer thousands each month without admitting what those payments were protecting. The betrayal felt quieter than anger. It settled inside me like weight. That night, I separated our finances. I redirected my paycheck, froze our joint credit, removed Ryan as an authorized user, and documented every transfer from the previous 6 years. I also reserved $18,000 for my father's home modifications. For the first time, my parents' needs came before the chaos Ryan's family created. Ryan moved into a hotel after my attorney advised us to maintain distance. He agreed to cooperate with investigators, but cooperation did not rebuild trust. Meanwhile, Amanda closed the boutique without warning. Her employees arrived to find locked doors and unpaid wages. Suppliers began calling Denise. Caleb stopped answering everyone and disappeared from work for 3 days. The family structure collapsed faster than I expected. Then investigators traced several cash withdrawals from the forged loans. The money had not gone to business losses, medical debt, or Denise's house. More than $40,000 had been transferred to an account belonging to someone outside the family. The account holder was a man I recognized immediately. He had attended every holiday dinner for the past 3 years, introduced only as Amanda's trusted business advisor. According to the records, he was much more than that. He was Denise's secret partner, and the two of them had been planning to leave Ohio together. The man's name was Victor Hale. For 3 years, Denise introduced him as someone helping Amanda negotiate supplier contracts. He attended Thanksgiving dinners, brought wine at Christmas, and acted patient whenever the family discussed money. I had always found his presence slightly strange. Now I understood why. Bank records showed that Denise had transferred money to Victor almost every month. The payments began shortly after the first forged loan and increased whenever my own transfers arrived. Some amounts were small enough to look harmless. Others exceeded $5,000. Investigators traced hotel charges, airline tickets, furniture deposits, and a lease application for an apartment in Sarasota, Florida. Denise and Victor had planned to move there before the end of summer. She had not been trying to save her house. She had been preparing to leave it. The mortgage warnings, unpaid taxes, and desperate requests were never the whole truth. Denise allowed everyone to believe she was barely surviving while quietly financing another life. My money had supported that life without my knowledge. Amanda knew about the relationship. She also knew Denise planned to sell the Ohio house eventually and repay part of the debt from the proceeds. That plan depended on property values rising, lenders remaining patient, and nobody checking the signatures closely. Most of all, it depended on me continuing to pay. Caleb had known less, although he accepted money without asking where it came from. His gambling debts made him easy to control. Whenever he questioned Amanda, she reminded him how much the family had already covered for him. Everyone carried part of the secret. Ryan sat beside me during the investigator's report, staring at the transaction history. His mother had told him for years that she remained in Ohio because family mattered more than personal happiness. In reality, she was arranging her departure behind everyone's back. His grief looked real. So did his shame. Still, I could not comfort him. For years, Ryan had expected me to absorb every problem quietly. He never examined the pressure because I made it invisible. Even after my father's stroke, he protected his comfort before my family. His mother's betrayal did not erase his own. The legal process moved quickly once Victor's account became part of the investigation. The lender froze several assets. Amanda's business records were seized, and Denise received formal notice that the fraud claims could lead to criminal charges. That was when the family turned on one another. Amanda blamed Denise for involving Victor. Denise blamed Amanda for using forged signatures. Caleb blamed both of them for convincing him the money was safe. Ryan blamed himself for refusing to ask questions. Nobody blamed me anymore. They needed me again instead. Denise sent messages describing her fear of losing the house. Amanda warned that prosecution would destroy her future. Caleb claimed the stress might push him back toward gambling. Each message carried the same hidden request: save us from the consequences. I deleted them without responding. My attention belonged to my parents. The contractor began work on their house that week. The ramp was installed first, followed by wider bathroom access and support rails. My father watched the workers from a chair near the window, frustrated by how much help he needed. Even then, he worried about the cost. That nearly broke me. The people who deserved my support felt guilty accepting it. The people who exploited me had treated it as an obligation. Ryan asked to meet several days later. I agreed only because my attorney recommended documenting his full account before deciding what came next. He arrived with a folder containing 6 years of messages, tax records, and payment requests from his family. He had finally organized the history he once ignored. The pattern was obvious. Whenever I received a raise or bonus, a new emergency appeared within weeks. After Ryan mentioned my promotion, Amanda suddenly needed inventory. When he discussed my annual bonus, Denise's property taxes became urgent. My income had been tracked through him. Not because he intentionally reported it, but because he talked freely. He had shared our private finances to appear successful, helpful, and dependable. His need for approval had made me financially visible to predators inside his own family. Then I found a message sent 2 years earlier. Ryan had warned Denise that I was becoming tired of the constant payments. Her response had been simple in meaning. She believed I would never stop because I was too afraid of looking selfish. For 6 years, she had mistaken my patience for weakness. By the 30th day, Denise's house entered formal foreclosure proceedings. Victor disappeared from Ohio, and Amanda received notice of a federal fraud investigation. That same morning, Ryan placed one final document in front of me. It was a signed statement accepting responsibility for his part in the loan application. Beneath it sat a second document, a divorce agreement already reviewed by his attorney. I expected the divorce agreement to frighten me. Instead, it brought a strange sense of relief. For weeks, every discovery had forced me to react. I froze accounts, gathered evidence, disputed debts, hired attorneys, and tried to protect my parents while Ryan's family collapsed around us. The papers finally gave the chaos a direction. Ryan did not ask me to stay. He admitted that our marriage had depended on my ability to carry what he refused to face. Whenever his family created another crisis, he passed it toward me. Whenever I solved one, he treated the result as normal. His apology was careful and complete. That did not make it enough. I had spent years believing love meant helping someone survive their weaknesses. What I never understood was that constant rescue can protect those weaknesses from ever changing. Ryan had not needed to become responsible because I was responsible for both of us. His family had not needed to live within limits because my income erased those limits every month. Even I had avoided something important. Supporting them allowed me to feel useful, generous, and necessary. Each payment created temporary peace, and I mistook that peace for stability. The divorce agreement divided our property without touching the money reserved for my father's care. Ryan offered me a larger share of the house equity and accepted responsibility for the legal costs connected to the applications he had assisted. He also agreed to cooperate fully with every investigation. I signed 3 days later. There was no dramatic confrontation and no final attempt to punish him. By then, the truth had already done more damage than anger ever could. Ryan moved into a small apartment near his office. His mother's house entered foreclosure, although her attorney delayed the sale while investigators reviewed the fraudulent loans. Victor was located in Florida after attempting to withdraw money from a frozen account. Most of the cash was gone, but authorities recovered documents showing that he and Denise had discussed using another loan before leaving Ohio. Amanda eventually admitted that she completed several applications. She claimed Denise directed the scheme and promised everything would be repaid after selling the house. The records showed Amanda benefited too much for that defense to hold. Her boutique closed permanently. Caleb entered a gambling treatment program after his employer discovered he had borrowed money from coworkers. For the first time, nobody in the family paid his debts before he felt the consequences. I heard these updates through attorneys rather than relatives. That distance protected me. My credit card account was removed after the lender confirmed identity theft. The late payment disappeared from my report, and the hard inquiries were deleted several weeks later. Restoring the numbers was easier than restoring my trust. I still checked every account each morning. Unknown phone calls made my chest tighten. Financial requests from anyone, even reasonable ones, immediately felt dangerous. Recovery did not arrive as one clean moment. It came through small decisions. I stopped explaining every boundary. I allowed calls to remain unanswered. I reviewed documents before signing them. Most importantly, I stopped treating another adult's panic as my emergency. My father returned home near the end of summer. The ramp gave him independence, although he hated moving slowly. He could reach the kitchen with a walker and enter the shower without risking another fall. One afternoon, I watched him cross the living room alone. The distance was barely 20 feet. It felt more meaningful than every check I had written during my marriage. My parents never asked what happened between Ryan and me. They knew enough to understand that I had been hurt, but they gave me space instead of demanding details. Their restraint showed me another form of love. Real care does not take everything available. It leaves room for the other person to breathe. 6 months after the night Ryan called my parents my problem, the divorce became final. I sold our house, moved closer to my parents, and accepted a remote position with the same company. Ryan sent one message after the court hearing. He had started therapy and was learning why he had spent his life managing his family's emotions. He did not ask for forgiveness or another chance. I appreciated that more than another apology. Sometimes, I wondered whether our marriage could have survived if he had defended me earlier. Perhaps it could have, but that question no longer controlled me. The woman who entered that marriage believed loyalty meant staying useful. The woman who left understood that loyalty without respect becomes exploitation. I did not regret helping people I loved. I regretted ignoring what their dependence was teaching me. Every emergency had revealed their priorities. Every unanswered question had exposed Ryan's avoidance. Every payment had shown me that I was valued most when I made problems disappear. The night he separated our families with one careless rule, he believed he was protecting himself. Instead, he gave me permission to stop protecting everyone else. Once I did, the lies could no longer afford to survive. A year after the divorce, I received a letter from Denise. It arrived without a return address and sat unopened on my desk for 3 days. Part of me expected another explanation, another request, or another carefully shaped version of the truth. Eventually, I opened it. Denise had lost the house. Amanda accepted a plea agreement connected to several fraudulent applications. Victor faced separate charges after investigators linked him to similar financial schemes involving another woman in Florida. Caleb remained in treatment and had started repaying smaller debts himself. Ryan no longer spoke to his mother. None of that surprised me. What surprised me was Denise's reason for writing. She admitted that she had resented me from the beginning. My career, my income, and my independence made her feel powerless. She depended on Ryan emotionally, but once I entered his life, his attention shifted. Helping her financially became the easiest way for me to earn peace inside the family. Then the help became expected. Over time, she stopped seeing the money as mine. In her mind, my salary belonged partly to Ryan, and anything belonging to Ryan could be used for his family. That belief made every lie easier. She ended the letter by asking me to understand that fear had driven her choices. I understood fear very well. I had spent years afraid of appearing selfish. I feared conflict, rejection, and the possibility that Ryan might choose his family over me if I refused them. Fear explained many of my decisions. It did not excuse them. I folded the letter and placed it inside the legal file containing the fraudulent applications. I did not respond, because understanding someone does not always require reopening the door. My life had become quieter by then. I rented a small house 15 minutes from my parents. The place had 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and a porch facing a line of maple trees. Nothing about it looked impressive. Still, every payment came from a budget I controlled. No hidden emergencies waited behind my paycheck. Nobody measured my love by how quickly I transferred money. For the first time in years, silence felt peaceful rather than suspicious. My father continued improving, although he never regained full movement on his left side. He learned to cook simple meals again, drove short distances with adapted controls, and complained whenever my mother tried to help too much. Watching them taught me something I had missed during my marriage. Healthy support still allows dignity. My mother helped without taking over. My father accepted help without turning it into entitlement. Neither of them used guilt to avoid responsibility. Their marriage was not perfect. It was simply honest. Ryan and I exchanged occasional messages about unresolved documents. His tone changed over time. He became more direct, less defensive, and careful not to ask me to manage anything for him. Months later, he told me he had paid off the first debt connected to his own choices. I was glad for him. That feeling did not make me want him back. Healing had removed my anger without restoring the relationship. I could recognize his progress while accepting that I no longer belonged beside him. The greatest change was harder to explain. Before everything collapsed, I believed boundaries were punishments. Saying no felt cruel, especially when someone was frightened or desperate. Now I understood that boundaries reveal what a relationship is built on. People who value you may feel disappointed, but they adjust. People who value your usefulness become angry when access disappears. Ryan's family did not fall apart because I stopped paying. They fell apart because my payments had hidden problems they refused to face. The fraud existed before my boundary. The debt existed before my boundary. Their resentment, dishonesty, and dependence existed long before I finally said no. My decision merely removed the cover. Sometimes, I still think about that night in our kitchen. Ryan believed one sentence separated my responsibilities from his. In a way, he was right. My parents were my responsibility to support with love and honesty. His family was his responsibility to face without using me as protection. My greatest responsibility, however, had always been the one I ignored. It was protecting my own future. I had spent nearly $300,000 learning that lesson. The price was painful, but I never forgot it. Love should never require financial blindness. Loyalty should never demand silence. And anyone who only feels secure while you are sacrificing yourself was never protecting you at all. That night, Ryan gave me a rule meant to limit my compassion. Instead, he gave me the sentence that finally saved my life.